On the maps a long time ago, way back in history, you say, here be dragons. The undiscovered part of the map said, here be dragons. You ever hear that? Never happened. There's one map in the history of the world that ever said, here be dragons. It was the Lenox globe in 1504. I wish I was back in 1504 because I would have set sail and headed that direction to go get them. Today I'm going to talk about dragons, 5 types of dragons. First type of dragon used to kill children, young adults too, but children mainly. From the dawn of time, killed millions, countless of children. And then in 1735, there was a guy named Claudius Amiens. Shout out to Claudius Amiens. Respect on his name. This little kid was getting attacked by a dragon. I think the kid was like 9 years old. Dragon was inside his belly. Claudius Amiens in 1735 cut into that child's belly and removed that dragon. Saved the kid's life. Killed the dragon. Did you know that dragon is no longer powerful? We kill like 330,000 of those dragons a year. Sometimes I think about that. I think about how it would be to see a field with 330 dragons dead out on it. That's the first type of dragon. Second type of dragon. The dragons are hard to identify. It's very hard to figure out where the dragons are. So the second type of dragon I want to talk about is a dragon that a guy named Raymond Damadian discovered in 1976. Shout out to Raymond Damadian. Here's what he did. He used magnets to take a picture of a living, breathing mouse. It's true. That mouse had a dragon inside of it, and they actually saw a visual image of that dragon while the mouse was still alive. Shout out to that guy. It's the second type of dragon. Third type of dragon. Boy, this one killed a lot of people. This dragon was so small that it would get inside your coronary arteries. And then, at a moment known only to the dragon, it would fold its wings, block all the blood flow, have ventricular arrhythmia, you die. But in 1985, a guy named Jacques Puel, he put that dragon in a cage to defeat it. He actually didn't put it inside a cage. He put it outside the cage. So he ran a cage up there in that coronary artery and expanded it so that it pinned that dragon's wings against the walls, and that dragon would never be a threat again. Shout out to him, respect on him. Now the fourth type of dragon we're still learning about. Fourth type of dragon is very perplexing. So the fourth type of dragon, man, this is a dangerous one. It is so small, so microscopic, that it wraps its tail up around your DNA. And then at some point, that dragon decides to make a protein wrong. You die. So how do we identify that dragon? Translational bioinformatics. We sequence the entire human genome and it shows us where the dragons are. And right now we're developing ways that we can go in and edit those dragons out. And those dragons will be gone forever. It's a big field study. Sequence an entire human genome cheaper than you can buy an iPhone. So the fifth type of dragon, ooh, I don't like it. It's new. The fifth type of dragon is a dragon that haunts our hallways. Sile Im Ram. It's a new dragon. This dragon has a difference. The difference in this dragon is most dragons are happy just to kill a person. They have their victim, kill the victim. They're happy, they're satisfied. Satisfies the dragon. Not this one. This dragon wants to not only kill that victim,
but it wants to use that victim to infect any rescuer who comes along. So basically now we've got a dragon that wants to kill every rescuer who comes into contact with this victim. Can you imagine a dragon that gets the princess and then says, you know what, I'm just going to hang out here. And in fact, I may not even hurt the princess that bad. I'm just going to wait for the knights. I'm going to hang out and I'm going to kill them too. So my job is, I'm a doctor, a CMIO, and I work within health IT. My business is killing dragons. I want to keep this chat lit. I respond to the chat real time. So let's keep the comments flowing. There. Turn it 11. Turn it on. I got it. Perfect. Right, no, right there. Yo, in this video, I'm going to lay out a series of notes, and I want you to take note. Get out your bar napkins, get out your legal pads, because I'm about to lay out everything you need to know to successfully wage war against these dragons using telemedicine. We're going to get started right now. What up, fam? Dr. James W. Stalgum, a.k.a. Jimmy Joe Coltrane. Yo, you know me. I lecture on sore throat. Sounds like a keynote. Talk about heart block. Sound like a TED Talk. Today, I'm going to tell you about killing dragons. Slide number 1, theory. We knew the dragon was coming. Get your pens out. You're going to have to make notes on this. We knew this dragon was coming. Had plenty of time to prepare. A lot of people didn't, but we had plenty of time to prepare. My health IT team, we huddle every day. Every single day since January. We huddle every single morning. Talk about how to kill the dragons better. Secondly, we didn't know how to approach the virus, so we took this individual dragon and we said, yo, we need to treat patients that may harbor this dragon like a source of radiation. What do you do with radiation? You don't let it inside the building. But if you have to have a source of radiation in the building, you put yourself far away from it and you cover yourself with proper protective equipment. So PPE and distance is the cornerstone of our strategy. Every single workflow measures PPE and distance. Our goal was a nurse does not spend more than 2 minutes with a patient. The entire in-person time with that patient is less than 2 minutes. We got it down to 90 seconds. Later on, they came out and they said 10 minutes. Then we felt pretty good. 5-fold advantage over that dragon. Escalation provider. You need to write this term down, escalation provider. You have all your providers at home doing telemedicine. You do every visit telemedicine that you can, but some people need a physical exam. They don't need a history. They don't need somebody breathing the same air as the patient. They need a physical exam. So you allow a way out. Yo, doctors don't want to do telemedicine if they don't have a way out. You take somebody and you say, hey, we want you to do telemedicine. They'll say, well, what if the patient has appendicitis? What if the patient has this? What if the patient has that? Yo, you've got a way out. We have engineered a way out. Warm handoff. Warm handoff to that escalation provider. Patient then goes on site, handoff. They know the patient's coming. Everything works perfectly. Training. We're going to talk a little bit more about training, but training should be measured in quantity. Yo, quantity has a quality all its own. We did training sessions every single day for 6 weeks, voluntary. Join if you want. We had some docs join 10 different times. We had some docs join one time and then got it and went forward with it. And here's my secret weapon. In this war that I fight personally, there are some advantages that I have. One of the advantages that I have is I have my own clinic. I have a clinic, 12 providers. 12 providers in my clinic, well, counting me and 11 others. Because I'm the CMIO and I have my own clinic, I have my own test bed. I don't have to go around finding physician champions. I am the physician champion. So this makes rolling out anything much, much quicker. You can literally do scrums like every day and test things within your own clinic without having to go through the entire process. Having the CMIO have a facility and having the CMIO practice is key. Yo, don't lose touch. If you're CMIO, don't lose touch. Better go in there and learn how to practice. I host lectures, 2 lectures a week, teach doctors, quiz doctors, stay in the game, see patients, stay in the game, test the new workflows. My providers are great. Not a cult, just a bunch of dudes who like killing dragons. And the last thing I'm going to say is nothing's fair. Nothing about this is fair. You need to sit down with your staff, sit down with your doctors if you're managing doctors, and you need to say, hey, that part of your heart that wants something to be fair, you need to lock that part away. Because here's a fact. You got doctors who are 75 and really sick, and you got other doctors who are straight out of residency and healthy as a horse. You can't manage them the same way. You got to take the people who have comorbidities and figure out how to let them do telemedicine. This telemedicine is a blessing to people with comorbidities. We literally take people who would not even be a functioning part of the workforce and let them provide excellent care. So remember that. It ain't fair. Salmon never gets to eat the eagle. It doesn't happen in nature. If it was fair, 1,000 people wouldn't die every day. Second big point. Second slide. You like these slides I made? Define use cases. You need to sit down and you map out every single way you can use telemedicine, right? It may start primary care, ED, pre-hospital, EMS. We got 16 service lines of telemedicine. We're rolling out 1 or 2 every single week. And the reason we were able to do that is because we defined the workflows up front, and then we went out and did the workflows, right? We went out and did the work. Shout out to Jonathan. He says lunchtime training sessions are great. They were great. They're very well attended. People like that. Workflows and training. Shout out. That's another good comment right there. That's good. The slides. So Cassie says, where are the slides? The slides are great. They're made out of old trees that are mashed up, and they're put down onto, they shove some glue in there somewhere, I think. Then I take a Sharpie and write on them. Good question, Cassie. Shout out to Cassie. So here's what the use cases look like. Doctor on-site, patient off-site. Doctor off-site, patient off-site. Doctor off-site, patient on-site. And then they get really cool, right? Yo, I'm going to tell you something right now. Even if you don't write anything else down, write this down. Patient lives 1 mile away from the clinic. 5,260 feet are convenience. 20 feet will save your life. So we do telemedicine from one part of the clinic to the other part of the clinic. Doctor can be in an office over here. Patient's in an exam room right here. Yo, they don't breathe the same air. Dragons can't fly in a vacuum. They don't breathe the same air. Dragon can't get to them. Patient in another state. I don't want to go off on like a little bit of a rant, but I'm going to go off on a little bit of a rant. What was the first slide title? First slide title, that was Wendy. Shout out to Wendy, was theory. First slide title is theory. Second slide title is define use cases. Yo, Arkansas State Medical Board, no respect to you. I wanted to go to Arkansas, kill dragons. Said you had to be licensed. Wouldn't let us kill dragons in Arkansas. We got plenty of dragons to kill in Oklahoma. Maybe in the future we get some kind of federation of medical license. And shout out to y'all IHS sites that can do telemedicine across state lines, kill the dragons over there. Now that you have the workflows, you start getting variations for your individual service lines. You don't have to roll out every service line at once. Yo, don't stop trying to make something perfect. If you try to roll out a perfect methodology of telemedicine, you'll never have it. We'll be 6 years into this pandemic and you'll be like, oh, we almost got that working. Minimum viable product. Minimum viable product. 42 people on my team. Every one of them kills dragons. They're down for the struggle. We don't manage a department. We got a mass movement, right? So we know that we have to get stuff out there that the consumers can use. Okay, next slide. Cell phones. Cell phones, okay? Y'all see that? Cell phones are everything. Off-site means cell phone. I don't know what kind of broadband coverage y'all have, but I'm going to tell you the people who use cell phones as the primary source of internet fall into 2 categories. Number 1, they ain't white. Number 2, they're poor. So if you do a Venn diagram of a lot of the people we serve in Oklahoma, you're going to find that those 2 circles are inside each other, right? So everything has to be cell phone. Everything has to be cell phone. Apple phones are for rich people. If you're going to use an app and it's iOS, you are going to be targeting people who make an average of $80,000 a year. $80,000 a year. Yo, I sit in a meeting and a vendor says, well, we've got it for iOS, but not for Android. And I say, but all of our patients don't make $80,000. And they say, well, what do you mean? Everybody has Apple. And I'm like, yo, everybody in your peer group has Apple. Everybody you know has Apple, not our people. You go to Walmart right now and get a burner phone and try to install an iOS app on it. It's not happening. Okay. Now, that being said, I want to talk a little bit about app installation. Yo, frictionless, appless. You need to send a link. You need to text a link to somebody and they click on the link and then they join that telehealth session by clicking the link. You know why? Because nobody has an Apple ID. Nobody has a Google Play account. Because these elders get cell phones that are given to them by their adult children and they don't have those accounts. They don't have the passwords. So you tell them to download an app, and suddenly they can't download an app because they don't have the password to download it, right? So that is not an effective part of your strategy if you're requiring them to download an app. You've got to have something that's frictionless. Now, the cool thing is, there's a lot of stuff that's $0 that's frictionless, right? There are literally $0 apps. Like shout out to, and let me say this, shout out to Doximity. I'm not, they don't pay me any money. I don't use it. We don't use it. Shout out to Doximity. There is a cryptocurrency called the Basic Attention Token that basically pays you money to pay attention to ads. Doximity says, if you let us market to your providers, we will allow them to do telemedicine. It's wonderful. It's a beautiful thing. Invisible hand to the market. So good. What is free? Make an inventory of everything that's free. You would be surprised what you can use to do telemedicine that costs $0. Everything should be consumer grade. Everything should be consumer grade. Everything should be just something that anybody can download, something that they're familiar with in the marketplace, right? You will see if you try to use commercial grade telemedicine to cell phones, you will learn through your polling, and we're going to get to the polling part, but you're going to learn through your polling that a lot of these have to fail over. Like a lot of these telemedicine sessions will have to fail over to a regular phone. You're right, Tony. Downloading anything is hard or inconvenient. Let's keep it simple. It's a good comment right there. I'm going to write down that comment. Okay, so how do you manage your doctors? Sharpen up that pencil because this is a big part. How do you manage your doctors? Manage doctors. Average telemedicine visit takes 4 minutes and 30 seconds longer than an in-person visit. The time and chart is 4 minutes and 30 seconds long. We don't know how long the actual visit is longer, but we know the time and chart is 4 minutes and 30 seconds longer. Why? Well, you got to look at your strategy. So if you're able to have a nurse join the call before the provider and the nurse is able to do the med rec and the nurse is able to do those intake forms, that makes it a lot easier. If you can develop an intake form that is like an emergency intake form that you use for this particular dragon during the era that the skies and hallways are filled with these things, if you can develop a form that the nurses can do the intake in 5 minutes, and they're not going through this big, long questionnaire of stuff that used to really be important. Shout out to whoever made that meme. Said Jaco used to say we can't have Scotch tape on the walls. Now they said we can use a sock for a mask. It's true, right? It's absolutely true. So the stuff that used to be important, not really that important anymore. Can't wait to see the future of ECQMs, like the regulatory compliance stuff. Ooh, this is going to be big. 4 minutes and 30 seconds longer time and chart. Build the schedules accordingly. Shout out to Jonathan, need documentation accelerators. That's a big deal. You know, any kind of structured data that you can do. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. This is going to take a minute for me to get through this. Y'all just bear with me, right? Y'all see the YouTube channel, James Stalkup. You ever see that on YouTube? James Stalkup. Click like, click subscribe. Sometimes it takes a while to develop an idea. So you have to build the schedules to where the doctors feel like they're favored and supported to do telemedicine. And if they have a workflow that they can escalate that patient to on-site care, they will feel even more supported, right? This is how you generate buy-in, by doing these things. And this is stuff the books won't tell you, right? Like, you're not going to see this. Like, every book that's out there just wants to sell you something. You know, people are still out there buying these carts. You see these big telemedicine carts? Like I remember seeing those in like 1995, I think 1996. I don't know. DMX had like the #1 album in America, and I saw those carts, and I was like, man, that looks kind of antiquated. They're still around. People still sell those things, like point to point connected. It's silly for me. Like I don't get it. Telemedicine requires onboarding. Okay. Some docs are great. Some docs aren't when it comes to telemedicine. They may be great docs. That don't mean you can do telemedicine. You can take the best doctor on earth, let them do telemedicine. And if you just throw them in there and have them do it, you will be surprised with the results. I got a doc down the hall who, when he is on the phone with a patient, he probably scores higher than he does in person. When he's on the phone with a patient, he's like, hey, we can handle most everything you need on the phone. So don't think that you're getting suboptimal care. And the patient's just loving. I have heard other doctors say, yo, is there an emergency? If you've got the there's an emergency doctor, you need to identify that doctor and do a little bit of training. This is not a bad doctor. Nothing wrong with him. If you are relying on the intrinsic motivation of the doctor in your management strategy, you're not a manager. Like do something else. Like you don't have to, if you're relying on just, well, that's the way that doctor is, that ain't life. You got to go in there and you've got to explain to them the expectations, right? Teach them how to do it. Nobody learned this skill in med school. Maybe some of them learn now, but med school still have these big cards, so I don't know what kind of stuff. I don't know if they were putting an app in their hand and say, do this, figure out this person's insulin adjustment in this Google Hangout. I don't know that anybody does that in med school, right? I hope they do. Shout out to anybody who does that. If anybody's teaching on this call, make a little note, put a little star by that one. It is possible for providers to score higher by telemedicine than they do in person. You know how I know that? Because I polled them. I polled every single patient that saw a provider via telemedicine for a long time because we were doing a project. And then that old boy had to come on site and do some work for us. I said, we're going to take the audio video questions out and give the same survey to the patients. He scored higher remotely. Don't ever think that it's a lower level of care. If you do it right, it is a good level of care. It's great. It can meet or exceed, and a lot of times on telemedicine, people don't get sidetracked into stories about their kid's softball game and stuff like that. Like a lot of times the patients feel like it's a more formal event. And so they keep it related to medicine, which is beneficial for everybody. Yeah, y'all put your questions in the chat. If you disagree with any of this stuff, it's okay for you to be wrong. Put your questions in the chat and we'll address it. We'll have a little back and forth about it here. Nobody is ever going to know what you want unless you tell them. Nobody's ever going to know what you want or your expectations or any of that stuff unless you tell them what you want. And if I finish early, if I get through these slides a little bit early, I'll just answer questions. I'll answer 600 of them. Doesn't matter to me. Okay. If you can't figure out how to do this, you just shoot me an email and book me and I'll come down and teach you. Like literally, you can learn we can workflow and map out an entire strategy in one day. Shout out to the doctor yesterday. So my team got on a call yesterday with one dude who wanted to know how to do telemedicine. In a small clinic, I don't even know where he was, out in the middle of nowhere, but he shot me an email and he said, I don't know if I'm doing this right. Can y'all help me? And we just piled on our resources. We had some of the most skilled people in America on a phone call like, how can we support you? Right? Because somebody's got to do it. Somebody's got to be out there. If y'all don't know how to do telemedicine, if you have problems with it or anything, shoot me an email. $0 consultation fee. How about that? $0. Do not get caught up in peripherals. Boy, peripherals will kill telemedicine. You don't need all that. What happens is you start out thinking you're going to do telemedicine, and you got vendors coming in and out of your office all the time. They're like, oh, look, here's a remote pulse ox. You can listen to the heart. The physical exam is way overrated. If you disagree, put a comment in the chat. Physical exam's kind of it's overrated. I got a buddy who's a surgeon. He doesn't take people into the operating room for clinical appendicitis. He CAT scans 100% of them, right? You can't look days of physical exams over. Okay, this guy needs a thoracentesis. I'm going to tap on his back. You ever see that? When I was in med school, like you tap on the liver, and it's like I was like, you just ultrasound it. I'm like, why are you tapping? Where's the tapping study? I don't know the tapping study. And so the refutatory argument is like somebody maybe in the comments will put a refutatory argument of, oh, well, what about this, and they'll come up with one of the 50 things that actually need a physical exam. And then I'm going to pile on one of 5 million sorts of dragons that need no physical exam at all. Right? Quit trying to slam dunk the ball. Learn how to dribble the ball. Don't try to slam dunk it. And I'm going to tell you what, if you think that you are going to pay enough money to get good telemedicine, you'll buy 100 things. And if you implement 10 of them, I will be surprised. This ain't a problem that gets solved by money. It's solved by passion, fury, having a bunch of people on your team sharpen their swords, get ready to do battle. That's what solves it. It's the only thing I've ever seen in medicine. Like, look, you know, you need an MRI machine, go buy an MRI machine. Solve it with $1 million. Can't solve this with money. Solve this with ingenuity. Look at Cassie. We use telemedicine every day at our site. Good for you, Cassie. Good for you every day. I'm going to tell you this. So, and I don't want to get to, y'all don't worry about my motivation. I got my own motivation, you know, that drives me. But these dragons will exploit any flaw in your plan. If you have 10 minutes where you have your whole team just brainstorming, that's your best use of 10 minutes. If you can figure, let's back up. If you can figure out how to get everybody on a Zoom call for an hour and people are just making comments in the chat and they're having discussions, that is the best time you can spend. These dragons will exploit any flaw in your plan. They look for that flaw. 192 AD, the entire known library of all medicine since the dawn of humankind was lost. It's true. Look it up. 192 AD, Galen, Greek physician, he's famous. Galen's findings literally lasted 1,000 years. Galen had amassed every single text, and this is before the printing press, that it weren't like a bunch of copies. You had to pay a dude to copy it, like sit down and rewrite it. Galen had a library of all of the world's works, everything that had happened in Egypt and Africa and all these places, all this wonderful, wonderful volumes of work, and it got lost in a fire. Everything. At one time, like we went back to zero. Who do you think started the fire? I guarantee you those dragons started that fire. They didn't want that. They didn't want the knowledge. They didn't want the cumulative, continuous advancement of that medical knowledge. Slide number 6. How does diabetes patients get their lab work, A1C? This is a great question. We draw them in the parking lot. The parking lot is your new office. You should do everything you can in that parking lot. Boy, if I had an x-ray machine, there was a terrible tornado that came through one time, and I just jumped in my truck and went up to volunteer for the tornado. It was a terrible tornado in Joplin, Missouri. I remember that. And I got up there, and they didn't need like a ton of help, but they had a lot of cool gadgets, so I guess they had some emergency work. And one of them was an x-ray machine that would fit in a suitcase. It's a portable x-ray machine that you could do a chest x-ray in a suitcase. And now that doesn't sound so stupid. That doesn't seem silly to me to have something like that. Anything that you can do in the parking lot is an advantage. I went out and evaluated a diabetic foot wound in the parking lot. You know why? Because I'm not going to kill somebody. I'm not going to. I'm going to do everything I can to keep them safe. Oh, isn't one time okay? There is no one time. We are always on guard. We're at war every single day. Every single day we have high mental acuity. We're looking for those dragons. Make it easy. Always have a face-up phone number in the EHR. If you're doing text a link to a cell phone, don't make anybody open another tab to figure out what the phone number is. That number has to be face up for everyone to see. If you get disconnected, it doesn't matter if it's handed off to the doctor, they're already in the session, they have to be able to reconnect. You have to have that good phone number. Your schedulers have to say, what is the best smartphone number for you to use? And they'll say, well, my cousin has a phone, but he's going to loan it to me for the visit, things like that. And shout out to anybody who's putting wireless in different locations for people to come up and use that. I think it's awesome. We've had a lot of patients doing telehealth visits from McDonald's and various places like that had free Wi-Fi. It happens. It does happen. Anything. Here's a good return on investment. Okay, Paula Anderson says, we have yet to set up telehealth, but want to, and we're not clinical based. We could use your expertise. You don't just need my expertise, you need all of our expertise. I'm just like I'm like a small part of the machine, but you know what? I'll be happy to help you. I'll tell you that. I'll be happy to help you. I'm in the dragon killing business. Like if I can help you kill dragons, then good. That just ups my body count. I'm all about it. So let's figure that out. Shoot me an email after this, james-stalkup@cherokee.org, or on YouTube, James Stalkup. The thing that's going to pay off 10 to 1, anything that you can do to help with ER transfers, hospital admissions, surgical evaluations, anything you can help with lab or radiology, anything that you have that you can produce that will help somebody figure out how to do these atypical sort of things is going to pay off 10 to 1. Look at the technology that I'm using. I got every piece of technology in the world. And look, that's what I'm using. Take index cards, write down the exact workflow for doing it, make a little Visio, print it out on a small piece of paper, laminate it, and tape it up on the wall beside every single computer you have so that nobody loses it, nobody misses out on the workflow. Anything you do to facilitate transfers, surgical evaluations, outpatient surgery to inpatient, anything that you do to support those workflows to help people know what they should do is going to pay off 10 to 1. Map out your alert strategy. If you come up with 10 alerts, you probably need to put 1 into production. Okay. Everybody wants to alert everybody on this stuff. Make sure that the alert has the right information going to the right people. Okay. Be very cautious with your alerts. Be stingy with your alerts. Make sure they're very well thought out. You should know what alerts to have because your workflow is going to demand it. The workflow should say, hey, dummy, put an alert here. It shouldn't be the other way around. Okay. Look at Wendy. Shout out to Wendy. Somebody went out and found out where it has Wi-Fi so they could advise people. Genius right there. That's good. That's good. Look at what Wendy said. Y'all, I don't want to talk about Microsoft Teams on this call. I don't even want to talk about Microsoft Teams. Okay. There has to be a way for your provider and nurse to communicate. So as you map this out, you have to have a direct line for your provider to your nurse. It can be phone, probably shouldn't be text message unless it's secure. We actually use Skype for Business Link to communicate back and forth. There needs to be some sort of IM functionality from your doctor to your nurse, or things will get very, very confused very quickly. Like the first day, things will get confused. So everybody needs to be trained on that workflow. The doctor to nurse communication is just as important, if not more so, than the doctor to patient communication. Okay, train. Okay, I missed alerting and routing, but you know what I'm talking about. Make sure you got everything set up for routing. Make sure you train that's part of the workflow. Okay. Next one was doctor nurse. I covered that. I'm flying through these. So proficient at it. Look at that. Guy's a public speaker right there. Training. Train. You don't have to put out great quality training. You have to have somebody who knows the nuts and bolts, who can explain it in a manner that people can understand, and have them do it over and over and over and over. When you're training, your staff's job is to keep the comments lit. Comments are applause. Comments are engagement. It should look like, versus DMX versus Snoop Dogg. It should be like an IG live with Kim Kardashian. There should be comments just ticking off because it will raise the engagement of people who are watching it. You've got to have your staff spamming comments in the training. Okay. 1 hour session every day. Use YouTube to make high engagement videos. When we make YouTube videos, they're funny. Like, they're nuts. They're really, really good. We started doing this before COVID, and then COVID came, and the gravity of COVID kind of killed the vibes a little bit. But you can make YouTube videos and put whatever links you want to in the description of the YouTube video. Here's the best part. Take a QR code. Take a QR code that takes them to the YouTube video, and you can stamp it onto whatever training documents. They literally just shine their phone at it, and it shows them the video. Okay? The QR code's good. Nobody's retyping an address. Nobody's going to retype an address. Okay. This is all theater. It's all theater. If your video should convey engagement, this is all theater. I'm sorry. This is the way it ended up. There's a lot of people who took theater. There's a lot of people who are actors who now have success. It's all theater. You got to embrace it. You got to make good videos. They have to have good audio. They have to have good staging. They have to have things that keep people engaged. That whole thing of a 45-second intro that has different sort of, broad shots of your facility, like your staff doesn't care about that. They see the facility. They know what it looks like. Poll your providers. Poll your providers within the first week. Okay. Within the first week, you need to have a poll for your providers. Do you have all the tools that are necessary to do your job? What percentage of your calls do you think fail over to phone only? You need to outline everything you have a question about, and you need to poll them. We use SurveyMonkey. We have an institutional SurveyMonkey license. It is wonderful. It gives us your analytics are one thing, but I'm going to tell you what, you're not going to report on the vibes. Okay, SurveyMonkey is going to tell you the vibes. SurveyMonkey is going to tell you the vibes of the providers, right? So this is what asking questions. Are you happy doing this? How would you rate your happiness in practice of this versus traditional in-person care? Ask them these questions and then figure out if there's anything you need to have an intervention on, right? When you do a poll, clickbait your polls. Oh, you got 200 providers and you send them an email that says EHR poll, you're going to get 5 responses. You send them one that says you won't believe what the cameraman caught in this EHR poll. You're going to get 190. This one weird trick saved a doctor 2 hours a day. It doesn't even have to be true. It doesn't even have to make sense. It's just something that makes them clickbait. Open up your Snapchat, figure out how they're clickbaiting you on Snapchat, and then steal that and somehow put the word EHR in it and then send it out. Or telemedicine. Okay. Poll your people. I need to show these before. Poll your people. Next one. No-show rate. No-show rate is exactly the same between in-person care and virtual care. No-show rate's exactly the same. Don't just take my word for it. We'll move on. Can your content. Things like auto text, macros, anything you can do, order sets, anything you can do to help the providers when they're actually in the telemedicine visit, because the cognitive burden in the telemedicine visit is very, very high for providers, very high. Build an order. Don't build a team. Build an order, right? Don't build a team. You build an order. Get people passionate. Get people, run it like a mass movement. Make it a cult of personality. Make it where people like providing the care to the people. I don't manage people. I manage mass movements. I remember one time I had a supervisor say, do you think your people would be willing to, and I was like, I don't know what the next thing is, but we're willing to do it. Move to Mexico, whatever's going to follow that, we're willing to do it. Everybody covers their positions. Everybody fights. Nobody quits. Everybody gets credit for killing the dragons, right? Our help desk kills dragons, right? Tony Potts will choke the life out of a dragon. Kobe 4 killer, you know how many dragons he's killed? A lot more than 4. A lot more than 4. Personal virtue. I don't encounter other humans. I don't encounter other humans because if I get sick, that impairs my ability to kill dragons. That harms my mission as a person. My order, we wear masks. We follow all precautions. We keep safe. Shout out to all my techs. Y'all ever think about your techs? They didn't sign up for it. Everybody else can work remotely, but techs still got to be on site. So shout out to my techs who go out there every day and face those dragons. Love it. So I covered a lot, and we're coming up to the end here. And I covered a lot here, but I want to kind of close with just a few sort of historical notes. May help you. And there's a bunch of good comments here, and I'm going to get to these. 5 minutes heads up. Okay, I got it. So we're all struggling. You need to sharpen your sword. And if you think 2020 was bad, you just wait till 2021. Sharpen your sword. If you think that your role is to exchange labor for money, you need a different gig because you are a different person than my team, right? I was on the beaches in Greece. I could see off in the distance the walls of Troy. And I could see the Achaean camps where Agamemnon was trying to get everybody excited to go fight. And at that moment, I realized the dragons were killing more of the Greek soldiers than the armies of Hector. Sharpen your swords. 1350s France, I was there. I saw every one of these farms just get demolished by dragons. It was desolate. A third of the population had died. And the townspeople all thought, well, if we can just keep quiet, stay still, and not make a ruckus, the dragons will leave. The dragons will leave us alone. But the dragons never stop. So I told those farmers, you turn the plowshares back into swords and you sharpen those swords. See, this is an eternal battle between us and the dragons, and they're killing 1,000 people a day. Sharpen your sword. Want some motivation? 1,000 human beings a day are dying, and you can take steps to prevent it, but you're not doing it. You may sit on the sidelines. People say, why do telemedicine? Here's why you do telemedicine. Because you have an ethical imperative to fight the dragons that are killing 1,000 people every single day. It is your responsibility as a provider to implement whatever technology it's going to take to keep the patients and keep your staff safe. And if you're not doing it, then you are doing something that is wrong. Sharpen your sword. All of the utilities are out there. I've just given you an entire manual on everything you need to do to kill these dragons. So you need to leave this talk. You need to go home, talk with your staff, and say, tomorrow the sword sharpening starts. I want to thank everybody for your attention today. We'll do some comments. James Stalkup on YouTube. That's the best place to get me. James-Stalkup at Cherokee.org. is my email address. And I am going to share a little contact link so that if you have to jump off, you will be able to get a hold of me. Oh, I love that picture. St. George trampling the dragon to death with his horse. Little fragile dragon bones snapping underneath those hooves. Snapchat JSeverus5, stock twits humble_pie. LinkedIn James Stalkup MD. If you want a worse version of Facebook, you can find me on LinkedIn. Okay, thanks everybody.